When the fields sleep, but the mind doesn't. The silent psychology of rural India. India talks about economic growth, digital revolutions, global leadership. But somewhere in a quiet village tonight, a farmer is awake. Not because the land is dry, not because the cattle are restless, but because his mind refuses to rest. And the tragedy is, no one ever told him that the mind also deserves care. When we talk about mental health in India, we often imagine therapy rooms, mindfulness apps, and self help podcasts. But rural India lives inside a very different psychological landscape. Village is often romanticized simple living, strong communities, peaceful surroundings. But psychology of rural India is shaped by something much deeper. Economics, uncertainty, marginalization, and survival. Research reports that adolescents in rural India show significant levels of depression and anxiety, largely associated with poverty, academic pressure, and lack of mental health resources. But statistics only tell half the story. The real story begins before sunrise. A farmer walks into his field. The soil beneath him carries centuries of tradition, but above him hangs something heavier. Loan repayments, unstable crop prices, unpredictable climate, and policies decided far away from his village. Between 1995 and 2019, more than 350,000 farmers in India died by suicide, according to the reports of National Crime Records Bureau. Economists call this agrarian distress. Psychologists call it something else. Chronic stress without emotional vocabulary. Because in many villages, mental health does not even have language. Depression becomes kamzori, anxiety becomes zyada sochna, and therapy becomes something only meant for pagal log. So people search for answers somewhere else. Sometimes in rituals, sometimes in blind faith, and sometimes in silence. But psychology tells us something important. Pain that is ignored does not disappear. It simply changes shape. A father's anxiety becomes anger. A mother's exhaustion becomes quiet sadness. A child's pressure becomes invisible panic. Think about a rural mother. She works in the field, she cooks, she manages the household. Her resilience is praised every day, but her emotional exhaustion is never asked about. Research on maternal well-being in rural communities shows economic deprivation and gender inequality significantly increase the risk of depression among rural women. Yet, she keeps smiling because society taught her something very early. Strong log complain nahi karte. And then there are children, the first student in the family to pursue higher education. Everyone calls him Ghar ki Umeed. But the weight of expectation slowly becomes anxiety he cannot name. Now compare that with cities. Today, public figures openly speak about mental health. Actor Deepika Padukone has spoke about her depression. Tennis champion Naomi Osaka stepped away from tournaments to protect her mental well-being. Urban society is slowly learning that vulnerability is not weakness. But imagine a farmer standing in a village meeting and saying, "Mujhe anxiety hai." The silence would be louder than thunder. Because rural society lives with one rule: strong people do not cry. But psychologist Carl Rogers believed something very different. He argued that healing begins when a person is truly heard without judgment. And perhaps that is what rural India needs the most. Not just policies, not just hospitals, but spaces where the mind is allowed to speak. Because the truth is, rural India is not mentally weak, it is structurally unheard. Its people carry emotional burden shaped by economics, climate uncertainty, social hierarchy, and political invisibility. And yet, they are expected to remain silent. So, next time we talk about rural development, let us remember something important. A nation does not grow only through its roads, industries, and digital network. It grows to the well-being of mind that sustain them. Because the most silent crisis in India is not in the soil, it is in the mind. Rural India is not mentally weak. It is a society where pain learned to stay silent.